You didn't come here by accident. There's a reason your eyes stopped on this video, a reason your mind has been quietly whispering questions you can't explain, and a reason that number, 1111, keeps appearing in your life at the exact moments when you least expect it. Think about it. How many times has it happened? You pick up your phone for no reason, and it's 11:11. You glance at a clock. 11:11. A receipt, a number plate, a random screen. 11:11. At first, you ignore it. Then you notice it. And then, it starts noticing you. Because this isn't coincidence. This is interruption. And what's being interrupted is your normal way of seeing reality. Most people will tell you it's just a lucky number. Some will say it's manifestation. Others will laugh it off and call it random. But deep inside, you already know it doesn't feel random. Because every time you see 11:11, something shifts. A pause. A silence. A strange awareness, like time itself is holding its breath. And in that moment, something is trying to reach you. But here's the truth no one tells you. 11:11 doesn't appear when you're ready. It appears when something inside you is waking up. And that awakening is not comfortable. Because the moment you begin to notice 11:11, your life starts changing in ways you didn't plan. You start questioning things. You feel disconnected from people you used to understand. You feel like you're outgrowing your own life, but you don't know where you're going. And that confusion? That's the doorway. Because 11:11 is not a sign of comfort. It's a signal of transformation. Let me explain something that might change the way you see everything. There are moments in life where your awareness begins to expand beyond your daily routine, beyond your habits, beyond the identity you've been living. And when that happens, reality starts sending you patterns. Not to scare you, but to wake you up. 11:11 is one of the strongest patterns. Why? Because it's symmetrical. 1, 1, 1, 1. 4 pillars. 4 points of alignment. It's not just a number, it's a mirror. A mirror showing you that something in your life is trying to align, but hasn't fully clicked yet. And here's where it gets intense. Every time you see 11:11, it's not just you noticing the number. Something is noticing you noticing it. Read that again. Because this is where most people stop thinking. But you didn't. That's why you're still here. There is a moment. A very small, almost invisible moment, right before you recognize 11:11. A split second where your attention is pulled, like something inside you already knew where to look. That pull? That's not random. That's awareness guiding awareness. And once you start noticing that, everything changes. Because now you're not just seeing 11:11. You're experiencing a connection. A silent communication that doesn't use words, but feels more real than anything else. And this is where things begin to get uncomfortable. Because the more you notice 11:11, the more you start to feel like your old life doesn't fit anymore. You begin to see through things. Conversations feel empty. Distractions feel forced. People's intentions become clearer, sometimes painfully clear. And you start asking yourself, why am I changing? But the real question is, why am I waking up now? Because timing matters. And 11 doesn't appear in your life randomly across years without purpose. It appears when something is shifting internally. A shift you may not even understand yet. And here's the part that might shock you. Most people who see 11:11 frequently are standing at a crossroads in their life. Not a visible one. An internal one. A decision point between who they've been and who they're becoming. And the reason it keeps repeating is because the decision hasn't been made yet. You're being shown the doorway. But you haven't stepped through. Not fully. And that's okay. Because stepping through means letting go of something. Something familiar. Something comfortable. Something that once defined you. And that's where fear enters. Because change always demands a cost. But 11:11 doesn't come to scare you. It comes to remind you. To remind you that you are not stuck. To remind you that your life is not just repetition. To remind you that there is more, and you've started to sense it. Even if you can't explain it. And that feeling you get when you see 11:11? That quiet, almost electric awareness? That's not imagination. That's alignment trying to happen. But here's the problem. Most people miss the message. They see 11:11 and make a wish. They treat it like a moment of luck. But this is not about wishing. This is about noticing. Because the real question isn't, what should I wish for? The real question is, what was I thinking, right before I saw 11:11? Because that thought is not random. That thought is connected to the signal. And if you start paying attention to that, you begin to decode the pattern. You begin to understand that 11:11 is not just showing up. It's responding. Responding to your thoughts. Your emotions. Your internal state. It's like a mirror reflecting back something you're not fully aware of yet. And once you realize that, you can't unsee it. Because now every time 11:11 appears, you stop. You think. You feel. And slowly, you start connecting dots you didn't even know existed. But this is just the surface. Because what 11:11 truly represents, goes deeper than patterns, deeper than coincidence, deeper than numbers themselves. It's about alignment between your inner world, and something far beyond it. Something most people never stop long enough to notice. And the moment you begin to notice it, your life doesn't stay the same. Because awareness, once awakened, does not go back to sleep. And that's why you're here. Not just watching, but listening. Because something in you recognizes this. Something in you has been waiting for this explanation, even if you didn't know how to ask the question. And this is just the beginning. Because in the next part, you're going to discover something even deeper about 11:11, something that will completely change the way you interpret every single time you see it from now on. Not just as a sign, but as a message. A very specific one. And once you understand it, you won't be able to ignore it again. Now let's go deeper, because what you're about to hear is where most people turn away. Not because it's false, but because it's too real. You see, up until now, you've been noticing 11:11 as a moment, a pause, a signal. But what if I told you that 11:11 is not just a signal? It's a checkpoint. A checkpoint in your awareness. And every time you cross it, something is being measured. Not judged. Measured. Measured in terms of who you are becoming. Because here's the truth most people are not ready to accept. Your life is not just happening. It is responding. Responding to your inner state in ways so subtle, you only notice it when patterns like 11:11 begin to repeat. Think about the last few times you saw it. Were you thinking about something important? Were you confused, lost, questioning something? Or maybe you were about to make a decision. That's not coincidence. That's alignment trying to communicate with you. Because 11:11 appears most strongly when your thoughts are at a crossroads. When you are standing between two versions of yourself. The one you've been. And the one you're becoming. And in that exact moment, your awareness is being asked a question. Not in words, but in feeling. Are you ready to move forward, or will you go back to what's familiar? That's the real meaning of 11:11. It's not about luck. It's not about wishes. It's about choice. And most people fail this moment. Not because they're weak, but because they don't realize a choice is being offered. They see 11:11, smile, and move on. But you're not most people. You stayed. You're still listening. Which means something in you already senses, this is different. So let's break something open. There are 3 hidden layers behind 11:11 that almost no one talks about. And once you understand these, you will never see it the same way again. The first layer is awareness. 11:11 appears when your awareness is shifting from automatic living to conscious observation. It's the moment you stop being on autopilot and start noticing your thoughts. That's why it often shows up during quiet moments, or emotional ones. Because that's when your mind is not distracted. That's when you are closest to seeing clearly. But here's where it gets deeper. The second layer is alignment. 11:11 doesn't just show up randomly during awareness. It shows up when your thoughts, your emotions, and your direction are either aligning or completely misaligned. And this is important. Because not every 11:11 moment is positive. Sometimes, it's a warning. A quiet signal that something in your life is off. That you're moving in a direction that doesn't match who you really are. And if you ignore it, the pattern doesn't stop. It gets louder. More frequent. Almost like something is trying harder to get your attention. And then comes the third layer. This is the one that changes everything. Reflection. 1111 is a mirror. But not a simple one. It reflects your internal state back to you, in real time. That's why the thought you have right before seeing 1111 is so powerful. Because that thought is being highlighted, amplified. Almost like reality is saying, look at this. This matters. But most people don't look. They miss it. Again and again. And then they wonder why nothing changes. But you're here for a reason. So listen carefully. From this moment forward, every time you see 11:11, pause. Don't rush it. Don't treat it casually. Ask yourself one question. What was I just thinking? And then go one step deeper. How does that thought make me feel? Because that feeling, that's your real answer. And once you start doing this, something strange begins to happen. You start seeing patterns not just in numbers, but in your life. You start realizing that certain thoughts lead to certain outcomes. Certain emotions pull you in certain directions. And slowly, you begin to take control. Not of everything, but of yourself. And that's where real change begins. But there's something else. Something most people don't realize until it's too late. The more you notice 11:11, the more it expects from you. Yes. You heard that right. Because awareness comes with responsibility. Once you start seeing the pattern, ignoring it becomes a choice. And that choice has consequences. Not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle one. You begin to feel stuck, disconnected. Like something is off, but you can't explain why. And that's because you've seen the signal. But you didn't respond to it. And over time, that creates resistance inside you. A quiet tension between who you are and who you know you could be. But here's the good news. You can shift this, instantly. Not by doing something big, but by doing something real. The next time 11:11 appears, instead of just noticing it, acknowledge it. Take a breath. Feel the moment. And make a small decision that aligns with your truth. Not what's easy. Not what's comfortable. But what feels right, deep inside. Because that's how alignment builds. Not through huge changes, but through small, conscious choices. And once you start doing this, 11:11 stops feeling like a mystery. It starts feeling like guidance. Like a quiet system that's always been there, waiting for you to notice it. But we're not done yet. Because everything you've heard so far is only preparing you for what comes next. In the next part, you're going to discover something even more powerful. Something most people never realize about 11:11. Even after seeing it for years. It's not just about what it means. It's about what it's trying to move you toward. A direction. A shift. A version of your life that you haven't fully stepped into yet. And once you see that clearly, you won't just notice 11:11 anymore. You'll understand exactly why it keeps choosing you. Now we reach the part where everything starts to connect. Because up until this moment, you've been looking at 1111 as something that appears. A signal. A checkpoint. A reflection. But what if the real question is not why you see 11:11, but why it keeps choosing you? Think about that carefully. There are millions of people looking at clocks every single day. Millions scrolling, checking time, moving through life. But not everyone notices 11:11. And even among those who do, not everyone feels something when they see it. But you did. You felt it. That slight pause, that inner shift, that unexplainable awareness. That's the difference. Because 11:11 doesn't just appear to be seen. It appears to be recognized. And recognition is not random. It means something in you is already tuned to receive it. Which brings us to something deeper. Something most people never realize. 11:11 is not trying to get your attention. It already has it. It's trying to guide your direction. And this is where things become very real. Because guidance is not always comfortable. Sometimes, it pushes you. Sometimes, it removes things. Sometimes, it forces you to see truths you've been avoiding. And when that happens, people panic. They think something is going wrong. But in reality, something is finally going right. Because 11:11 often starts appearing more frequently. Right before a shift. A real shift. Not just in your thoughts, but in your life. You may have already felt this. Things changing unexpectedly. People drifting away. Situations no longer working the way they used to. At first, it feels like loss. Like confusion. Like instability. But what if it's actually correction? Because here's the truth most people don't want to face. You cannot move forward, while holding on to a version of yourself that no longer fits. And 11:11 appears when that outdated version is starting to crack. Not to break you, but to break the illusion. The illusion that everything is fine the way it is. The illusion that staying the same is safe. The illusion that you have unlimited time to figure things out. You don't. And that's not fear. That's clarity. Because every time you ignore a moment of awareness, you delay your own growth. But every time you respond to it, you accelerate it. And 11:11 is one of the strongest moments of awareness you will ever experience. Not because of the number itself, but because of what it interrupts. Your routine. Your distractions. Your unconscious patterns. It cuts through all of that. And brings you back to one thing. Presence. And presence is where everything changes. Because when you are fully present, you see clearly. You feel honestly. You decide consciously. And that's where your power is. But let's go even deeper. There is something hidden inside the structure of 11:11. Something symbolic, but also very real. 4 ones. 1, 1, 1, 1. Each one represents a starting point. A beginning. A moment where something can shift. Now imagine that. For beginnings, aligned perfectly. What does that mean? It means opportunity. But not just any opportunity. Aligned opportunity. Moments where your thoughts, your awareness, and your timing all line up. And when that happens, your choices carry more weight. Your actions create stronger outcomes. Your direction becomes clearer. But only if you act. And this is where most people miss it. They feel the moment. But they don't move. They hesitate. They doubt. They go back to what's familiar. And the moment passes. But here's something important. 1111 doesn't punish you for missing it. It repeats. Again, and again, and again. Not because it has to. But because you're being given chances. Chances to notice. Chances to choose. Chances to step into something new. But those chances are not infinite. Because over time, if you keep ignoring the signal, you stop feeling it. It becomes just another number. Just another moment. And that's when people say, I used to see 1111 all the time, but now I don't. They think it disappeared. But it didn't. Their awareness did. And that's the real loss. Not the number. But the connection. So if you're still seeing 1111 right now, if it's still showing up in your life, then understand this clearly. You are still in the window. The window where change is possible. The window where awareness is active. The window where your life can shift direction. Faster than you think. But only if you respond. And response doesn't mean doing something dramatic. It means being honest. Honest about what you feel. Honest about what you know isn't working. Honest about what you've been avoiding. Because the moment you become honest, you become aligned. And alignment. That's when things start moving. But there's one more layer. And this one is the most powerful of all. 11. 11 is not just about you noticing reality. It's about reality responding to your readiness. Let that sink in. Because this changes everything. It means that the pattern you're seeing is not separate from you. It's connected to your state. Your awareness. Your willingness to grow. And once you understand that, you stop asking, why do I keep seeing 1111? And you start asking, what is my life trying to move me toward right now? That question. That's where transformation begins. Because now you're not just observing patterns. You're participating in them. You're engaging with your own evolution. And that's rare. Most people never reach this point. They stay distracted. Disconnected. Unaware. But you didn't. You stayed. You listened. You followed this all the way through. And that means something. It means you're closer than you think. Closer to clarity. Closer to change. Closer to becoming the version of yourself that 1111 has been pointing you toward all along. And in the next part, everything comes together. Not as theory. Not as ideas. But as something you can actually use. A way to respond to 11:11. That turns it from a moment into momentum. Because once you learn how to use it, you won't just see the pattern anymore. You'll start shaping your life through it. Now this is where everything changes. Because until this moment, you've been observing 1111. Noticing it. Thinking about it. Trying to understand it. But now, you're going to use it. And once you start using 1111 the right way, it stops being a mystery. And starts becoming power. Real power. Not the kind people talk about. The kind you feel in your decisions, your direction, your life. So listen carefully. Because what you're about to hear is simple. But if you actually apply it, it will change the way your entire reality unfolds. From now on, every time you see 11:11, you do 3 things. Not 10. Not complicated steps. Just 3. And these 3 will separate you from everyone who only notices. From those who actually transform. The first thing. You pause. Completely. Even if it's just for a few seconds. You stop scrolling. You stop thinking ahead. You stop reacting. Because 11:11 is not a moment to rush through. It's a moment to enter. A doorway. And if you keep moving, you miss it. So you pause. And in that pause, something powerful happens. Your awareness comes back to you. Not your phone. Not your surroundings. You. And most people. They never return to themselves. They're always outside. Always distracted. Always reacting. But in that pause, you come back. And that's where control begins. The second thing. You observe. Not the number. Yourself. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? What direction was your mind moving in? Because that exact state is what 11:11 is highlighting. And here's where it gets real. If your thoughts were clear, focused, aligned with something meaningful, then 11:11 is amplifying that direction. It's telling you, continue. But if your thoughts were negative, confused, driven by fear or doubt, then 11:11 is interrupting you. Not to punish you, but to redirect you. To show you this path is not aligned. And once you start seeing this clearly, you stop blaming life. You stop feeling lost. Because now you can see where you are. In real time. And that's awareness most people never reach. Now the third thing. This is the most important. You choose. Consciously. You make a decision in that moment. Even if it's small. You shift your thought. You change your direction. You commit to something that feels true. Not what's easy. Not what's comfortable. What's true. Because 1111 is not about showing you possibilities. It's about asking you to act on them. And the moment you do, something incredible happens. Your life starts responding faster. Opportunities begin to align. Decisions become clearer. You feel less stuck, less confused. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because you're finally in sync with yourself. And that changes everything. But there's something else. Something very few people ever realize. Even after understanding all of this, 1111 is not going to stay forever. Yes. It repeats. Yes. It shows up again and again. But not endlessly. Because its purpose is to wake you up. Not to hold your hand forever. And once you fully wake up, you won't need the signal anymore. You'll become the signal. Your awareness will be constant. Your decisions will be clear. You won't need a number to remind you. Because you'll already be present. Already aligned. Already moving in the direction you're meant to go. And that's the final stage. Where 1111 disappears. Not as a loss. But as a completion. But right now, if you're still seeing it, if it's still appearing in your life, then you are in the middle of something important. A shift. A transition. A moment that can define the next phase of your life. And you have a choice. Ignore it. And stay where you are. Or respond to it. And move forward. That's it. No complicated system. No hidden secrets. Just awareness. Observation. And choice. Again and again. Until it becomes who you are. And here's the truth. You already feel it. That's why you stayed through this entire journey. That's why this didn't feel like just another video. Because something in you recognizes this. Not as information, but as truth. And once you recognize truth, you can't go back to being unaware. So the next time you see 11:11, don't just smile and move on. Don't just think about it for a second and forget. Stop. Look within. And choose. Because that moment, that small, silent moment, holds more power than you realize. And if you start using it, if you start responding to it, your life will not remain the same. Not slowly. Not someday. But in ways that you will begin to notice. Sooner than you expect. Everything you've been searching for. Clarity. Direction. Purpose. It's not somewhere far away. It's hidden in moments like this. Moments you've been seeing again and again. Without fully understanding why. Until now. Now you know. Now it's your move.